Hey everyone, this is Gary K. Welcome to part 2 of How to Esports. For those of you who are on that are not watching this randomly, but actually plan to watch this today, then that means you knew that we did part 1 a couple of days ago, and it is below on this page. You can watch part 1 at any moment in time. Hopefully you've already watched part 1. If you haven't, I'd stop watching this and watch part 1, because we're kind of telling you how to get into esports and what the elements of the esports venues are like and why AV is a big part of esports. And I'm not doing this alone. We're here on the LAVNCH platform. You can message me with questions over there to the right. You can play. I want you to answer the poll questions as they come up. You can talk to each other down below on networking. But I want to bring our 2 guests back on who were also with us on Tuesday, Andrew Evans and Kevin Diltz from Extron. When we left on Tuesday with part 1, we were actually showing the West Point Army esports venue. Kevin, I want to go back to Davis Middle School, because you mentioned something I think is quite interesting, and that is that this was sort of like a thing that gave students who didn't have something else to be part of, whether it be a sports team or another club, to be part of something. And in fact, we talked about that venue, how they converted a storage room that wasn't being used. But I'm going to show a video that you actually shot that shows how the community embraced this, that includes the marching band and other members of the community in Compton, California. It's an underserved community where this became sort of a big deal. Kevin, I know you must be really proud of this.
Yeah, it was great. It was an awesome experience.
Yeah, so let's watch this video really quick so you can see what happened. All right, so as Kevin mentioned, that was a great experience, and you can see how esports is more than just the sports. I'm going to give you some other data points that I think are kind of interesting because you're going to have to find a way to bond with these schools and get them to trust you, because you're talking about bringing something to the whether it be a high school or middle school or university, you're bringing something to them that they're not totally sure about how to handle it themselves. You need to be educated a little bit on it. And the top currently, this has changed. This changes a lot. Top 6 college esports games, and that should be a capital E, by the way. Sorry about that. Esports games are League of Legends, Call of Duty, Valiant, CS:GO, Overwatch, and Fortnite. Those are the top 6 games right now being played as esports tournaments, and that's where the money is. Those gaming companies are actually supporting this industry. There's a great article, TechCrunch article from years ago, talking about sort of like how the esports tournaments work and some details about them. Of course, Fortnite as an example is a game. A lot of people play it. They play it on their their mobile phone. They play it on their desktop computer. So Fortnite was a game created by Epic Games. Also, interestingly enough, and we're going to talk to we're going to talk to Andrew about this in just a minute. The same company that does Epic Games that does Fortnite also produces a server system software program called Unreal Engine that is also used to run rides at Disney Worlds and Disneyland. So this is not like just some software tool that's just used for video games. This is a very sophisticated back end here that has the capability of growing many different directions, even into, ironically, the entertainment space, which I want to talk about with Kevin as we move through this, because I want to get his opinion on sort of like what happened with The Last of Us, which I think is sort of like an amazing example of esports coming. We've had a lot of movies come from esports, but nothing like what, and we've had a lot of esports and video games come from movies, but nothing like what happened there recently. And we're all looking forward to season 2. There's some big, there are some teams, there are some professional teams that are coming out of esports that are beyond college and obviously high school. Team Solomid is a team in North America that's won a few different championships. There's articles out there. USC University of Southern California actually has 2 esports teams. They don't have just one esports team. They actually have 2 different esports teams. It's so big on their campus. UCI, we already talked about UC Irvine and how popular esports is there. And of course, AV is a big part of esports. We talked about how there's 4 different systems there, but a lot of times we're just using venues that are available. And Andrew talked about how Extron can actually help you take a classroom and still use the classroom as a classroom and turn it into an esports venue. Or, if you're lucky, you have a room that like Davis had where it wasn't being used. Maybe it's in the student union and they basically said, this is going to be our esports venue. And if you're really lucky and it grows really well, you actually get your own arena ultimately built. So we see different examples of this. We've been flipping through different examples of this as we've been showing different configurations of esports sort of being adopted. There is actually an esports venue in Orlando, Florida at Full Sail. Full Sail University has sort of an esports or live. It's kind of part of their live events programming that they have. They have an esports segment of their live events program. They actually build an arena. It's not that big. It's a few thousand seats, I think, or maybe 2,000 seats. It's called the Armada, but it's, as you can see, it has an LED ribbon that goes around. It has projection and LED, and it's a good way if you're really, really into this and you want a place to send your live events text to learn about esports. It's a good program for them to go to. But as you can imagine, if you look there, there's the signal types are very familiar to you, right? You have going to LCD, got HDMI and AV over IP that's going through. You have projectors. We have SDI signals. We have coming from the cameras. We have HDMI and AV over IP. We may be taking SDI in and converting it to AV over IP to display it and send it anywhere. We could be taking HDMI in. It could be a combination of the two. We see a lot of applications where it's actually a combination of the two. We also have lights. It's a big deal to have lighting. I mean, it's sort of like this experiential part of it where we have a need to control the lighting and be in sync with the games. That in that case, that could be SDI or AV over IP as well. A lot of audio over networking as well. Dante being already sort of like I hate to use the term standard because it's not a standard, but it's certainly been adopted by the majority of companies out there for audio over networking. And you're having to deal with that in the facility in addition to sending the audio somewhere else as well if you're streaming it. You have production systems that are dedicated to esports like the Panasonic Kairos systems that are used in a lot of places. But remember that in some cases we still have EDID and HDCP to deal with. In some cases we don't, so we're having to deal with that. Depending on the venue, if it's on campus and it's closed and we're not streaming, we may have even potentially have HDCP issues, which I know that Andrew will probably address. But you do have live audio happening at the same time that the students are listening to audio from the games at the same time. So you have to deal with that audio and the live audio as well. You have a switcher, you have PTZ cameras that are all over the place, and you have the production broadcast cameras. So we have PTZ cameras, we have POV cameras, we have production broadcast cameras that we're having to deal with. And the handheld and wireless cameras where people are moving around in the case of a tournament and actually getting, just like you would in any sports game, you have the individual camera people carrying around cameras, and all of this POV cameras, as I said, each player has a POV camera behind them, so you can actually see, and sometimes in front of them and behind them, so you can see their intensity of their face, but also see what they're seeing live. All of these signals are all being fed into, we'll come back to Andrew and Kevin. All of these signals are all being fed into some big head-end system. And Andrew, the nav, I'm assuming can handle all this, right? You have HDMI coming in, you have SDI coming in, you're going to have the network feeds coming from the other devices. if they've got a production system, like I'm assuming that you're working with all the different production systems from a compatibility, from a control system compatibility as well, because they might be using a live production switcher for the live camera switching that goes into nav. Andrew, or how's that work generally?
Sure. So you're exactly right, Gary. There are definitely different segments of the system, especially in these larger arena type applications. The broadcast ST2110 based stuff, that's going to be its own ecosystem, and you're going to tie in things like maybe you're doing some show control metadata in there to have it interface with your environmental lighting that's tied to it. There could be a lot of different things that you integrate into that. The nav system in general, AV over IP, that's going to be what's really serving up a lot of those displays throughout that facility. And so being able to bring in that HDMI signal from those POV cameras, from the PTZ cameras, the live action ENGs that are people walking around doing their camera shots, a lot of those things that hit the broadcast system still have to go into that nav, because you might want to do IMAG of an interview with a player after they're done or something like that. And so we really do need to interface these two different ecosystems together. And that's where some of the signal conversion and scaling products come into play.
Well, I mentioned EDID and HDCP because in some cases you're dealing with that, right? In some cases you're not having to deal with it, but you have to be able to deal with it, because in the case wherever you're dealing with it, you now have to deal with it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where, the Pro AV integrators have kind of cut their teeth over the years, right? Is coming up with their EDID management plans. And this is no different. You're having to support multiple resolutions because of the different displays throughout the facility. And so you want that native resolution and refresh rate going to the player PC. But in all likelihood, that's not the same signal type that you want to send to your LED wall or even to your ribbon wall in the facility. And so you're using that EDID management, maybe duplicated outputs off of a PC, so that you have the right signal types, the right resolutions, the right refresh rates to be able to distribute throughout that building. And like you mentioned with HDCP, certainly some of that content, that we see is protected. The outputs off of computers, sometimes they might try to encrypt it even when they don't need to. And that's where having the ability to tell that computer it's not necessary to have that HDCP encryption turned on, and it still provides you with that unencrypted video signal when it's an appropriate signal type.
And you have to test that input by input, output by output. I want to put up the Space Jump Supersonic Cup Summer Tournament, esports tournament that was held in Perth, Australia. I want to put up some images from that really quickly, and then I want to come back into my presentation on like what's inside of an esports tournament, because it's gonna finish into the AV over IP stuff. But as you can see, this is what a typical small-ish to medium-size-ish esports tournament would look like, but it can be much bigger than that. And I think this is probably what you'd see on most college campuses now whenever they're actually holding a tournament. Sometimes at UNC we'll hold it inside of an auditorium, and we have to convert that auditorium. We don't get the prettiness that you get out of this in a lot of cases because we don't have the permanent lighting and systems that are mounted in there. But I think that's the future. I think we come back to most university campuses 5 years from now. You're going to see something more substantial than what most of them have now. And these are all, by the way, images that are on here from actual tournaments. But you got to think about the tournament is sort of like a trade show. If you're an integrator and you're familiar with a trade show, because you have the tournament itself, but you have all this stuff going on around the tournament. You're selling food just like anything else, but you also typically have the vendors out there selling their different, not just the games, but selling their digital goods that are plugins to the game, where they're making a lot of money selling these things. in addition to the stuff that's in the traditional venues, the shirts and stuff. And it's a very much of an immersive experience. If you look at this image here, you can see there's image magnification, there's lighting, and there's stage lighting, but there's also separate audience lighting. They're trying to make it an immersive experience so that you feel like you're part of the game. And obviously, some of this is hype, but in reality, it's very exciting to be at. And you have to kind of plan spatially, because the truth of the matter is it's sort of like taking an arena in the case where you're actually holding a tournament like this, and you're turning it into sort of like you would for a concert, right? Where in many cases where you have to think about, okay, there's part of the arena maybe I'm not going to use. So where's the stage going to be, and how the observers, because you've got these referees that have to be somewhere. So it's not as easy as you think to just stick them in the middle. Where's the audience going to be? Where's the broadcast station going to be, both for live broadcast to the audience, but also the remote broadcast? And so you need to think about stuff like ergonomics, right? Now, we don't really care about the audience ergonomics, but we do care about the players' ergonomics, because if they're going to sit there, they want to feel like they do when they're at home playing these games, or when they're on their team, with their teams playing these games. So the ergonomics. So as an integrator, in addition to selling all the stuff we've been talking about now, you should also look at the furniture, and you should also look at the chairs, because a lot of times the chairs have technology integrated into them. Because this is the kind of, you're going to have to outfit everything. You're going to be asked when you're given a contract to do an esports venue on a college or high school campus. A lot of times they want you to do the whole thing. So even though you're not used to doing the furniture, you need to get into that segment of the market and understand it, because the ergonomics of it are important. And then how is the audience participation going to happen so that they feel like they're part of the game itself, and sort of how we're going to seat them, and how we're going to make sure that they're satisfied with the tournament. How we're going to brand it and theme it, which involves a lot of display technology, right? I mean, a lot of times there's going to be sponsors where you're going to have to put logos up, stuff that you normally wouldn't have to think of if you were coming in doing the AV for a basketball. And this is why I mentioned this. If you're coming into an arena and doing the AV for a basketball tournament that's being played in a place that normally wouldn't get played in, they generally already have these the display contracts taken. So an arena, say for example Staples Center or SoFi in LA, that is owned by whoever sponsors the events there. So you can't just cover up the logos that are there just because you're having a tournament there. For esports, in this case of esports, you're coming in and expected to provide not just the esports tournament, but also the signage as well. So you have to think about the branding and the theming of it from a digital signage standpoint beyond the tournament itself, how you're going to handle network connectivity for the players, but also for the audience, because they're going to want to also share this with their fans and their connected audience. And the announcing, we talked about how there's two different announcing options here. One, you have the live announcer, and then you have the shoutcast booth for the online audience, which brings us to the broadcast inside of it, where Andrew said it's a mixture of SMPTE 2110 and their AV over IP, potentially even live broadcast SDI coming into that. And I noticed, Andrew, it's funny. I did notice that Panasonic with the Kairos added SDI to the Kairos, and even though it was all SMPTE 2110. I noticed they put SDI inputs because they realized that some people are still using SDI on cameras and stuff, and they needed to have that on there. They added that as a module just recently. And of course, lighting, right? You've got not only to install these lights, you got to control these lights, right? That in itself could be a separate business, potentially inside of your own organization. So I'm going to come back to Andrew and Kevin really quick. And I want to, first off, thank you guys for participating in this so far, because I know this is a lot that we're covering here. But my next section is where to start, Kevin. I'm going to ask you that first question. If you're an integrator, right, and you know that the school is kind of interested, do we go to the athletic department first? Do we go to academics? Where are you seeing, if we talk about college campuses, where are you seeing the idea coming from, or where's it being driven from right now?
So what I would encourage integrators to do is take a look at the university's strategic plan and find out what their long-term goals are. That often will dictate where this will reside on a department under the university. So if student recruitment is important to a school, that would likely reside under athletics. And so the esports coach or the director will have a annual, number that they need to hit in new student recruitment. And that all breaks down to tuition ROI over the 4 years that those students will be there. Larger D1 institutions like NC State, like University of Oklahoma, they don't have a problem recruiting students. So generally it would reside under student affairs at that university. And really what's important to them is the student retention, right? And that student experience while they're there on campus. So understanding, what the goals of the institution are, and maybe it's curriculum. Maybe they're looking to establish an esports degree pathway, whether that's first a certificate or a minor or a major. We're starting to see a lot more of those, and there's a lot of integration with those on campus. And so there's a way that you can approach and connect with new people that you're probably not working with now. If you're just generally working with the classroom AV folks or media services, now you have an opportunity to connect with different departments on campus.
And so if I'm going to pop up some pictures here in just a second of Canyon Springs High School, because they did something that's pretty substantial system that they have there. And I want to show that. And Kevin, if I was approaching a high school, I remember when the church market the house of worship market became big in AV. It was because a lot of us volunteered in our church and we're like, okay, we got to upgrade this. Is it that way in high school, or how are these things starting in high school? Because this Canyon Springs thing, this is not just your average everyday high school esports or venue.
Let me give the audience some background about just the market size of K through 12 scholastic esports. So back in 2018, the National Federation of High School Associations, they officially sanctioned esports. So they're the national governing body that writes the rules of competition for all sports and activities. And when that happened, the State Athletic and Activities Association followed suit. So currently there's about 23 state athletic associations. We talked about Fortnite in California. That would be under the CIF, or the California Interscholastic Federation. You have Hawaii Athletic Association. You've got New Mexico, Arizona, pretty much east to west, about half of the state. So once that starts to happen, you start to get attention from your athletic directors, because now this is something that they want to push and promote to their students. So when I work with the two different high school leagues, I would talk with principals, I would talk with superintendents, I would talk with activities departments and things like that. And sometimes it's under career technical education, depending on where this might reside. Find out if the school has a gaming club. Connect with the teacher there. Just start connecting with different people. And, I think what you'll find is this is something that they're really interested in. Esports is on this timeline, and every school, every college is at a different point. Some are at the very beginning. Some are, they're well developed. But as these schools are, growing over time, we're starting to see the need from moving from, let's say, a basic computer lab, which was all they needed. Now they're looking to really step this up to the next level and start adding AV infrastructure to help support that. And I think that's where we can come in, help you understand where that school is and put a plan together on the best way to approach that. We've worked with schools in every step in the way.
And it's an emerging market, Andrew, but it's using technology that we've had in our industry for a long time. It seems like new and wow to them, but in reality, it isn't that complicated. It's just that you have to bring a lot of different groups together in some cases in your organization. Right, Andrew?
Yeah, exactly right.
And just let me make one more point, if I could, Gary. Back when we're talking about colleges and universities, there's really three national leagues. You've got the National Association of Collegiate Esports. They're up to 260 schools currently. The NECC, who we're an official partner of, they have 355 colleges. And you have the Playfly College Esports. They've mentioned 900 member schools on their website. So there's a lot of participation out there at the collegiate level as well.
So all those high school associations and college associations mentioned are on this page down at the bottom. They're linked so that if you're interested in learning more about them or becoming a member or potentially even approaching them, the thing is that they're not going to know what you know. They're not going to know what you can do unless you tell them, Andrew. And I think, we tend to be, and the point I was trying to make to you a minute ago, we tend to be, even though this is technology been around for many, many years, kind of reactive. We kind of wait till someone calls us and said, hey, okay, great. You want digital signage network? We can do that for you. And I think in this case, what we're trying to do with esports here at rAVe, and I think you're the same way, is we're trying to get people to be more proactive and reach out and say, look, this is what we do. Like, we can do this. It's sort of like with smart buildings and architects. We got to tell the architects, by the way, we can do the smart building industry. You didn't realize that's what we could do. I think it's this way with colleges and universities. I know for sure. And in high school, I can't imagine they would even know to look up an AV integrator. So we have to be proactive in telling them what we actually do, Andrew.
Exactly. There's a lot of education that's happening in this market, and I think Kevin and a lot of people that are on his team are out there, and they're really, kind of that face of that educational element, and they're building those relationships. They're meeting with people. They're exposing them to really what the AV market has to offer, and what Extron has to offer from a product and support position. It's not just getting a box in there that does the AV over IP encoding and decoding, but it's having that expertise that's been built on years and years of signal processing, video distribution, that really can give these people new to AV the confidence in the technology, and to make it really so it's almost transparent to them. Certainly, they need the technology to make these systems happen, but a lot of the decision makers aren't technology people, and that's
Right.
where Kevin and his team really are coming in, and they're helping to really raise that bar for them, and to bring them up alongside some of the technology people that are familiar with the AV distribution, the streaming, the audio, the lighting design, whatever it might be, so that they can achieve those goals with the inclusion of people in those after school programs, people joining these clubs, people really getting in and having that exposure to STEM that might not have gotten it through any other way.
Yeah. And I think it's important to start. You've got to be proactive and start somewhere. And I do like the fact, Kevin, you have more resources that we put on the bottom of the page than what I was going to cover with NAC and TESPA, which you mentioned two of those. And then, of course, the Collegiate Esports Championship, which now ESPN is actually carrying the Esports Championship. There's a high school esports league. Bubba Gettert's in charge of one of the leagues. Overwatch has their own league. Now, the thing about the game leagues is that they go beyond the high schools and colleges, because there are semi-pro and professional esports. There was a great article, I don't know, probably 7-8 years ago. I'm sure you saw it, Kevin, in Wired magazine, that actually followed around. The author spent a week with one of the esports teams in Southern California. And what surprised me was they get up, this particular team got up every morning at 5:30 and would run on the beach every day. Because you normally think your vision of an esports player, somebody sitting at their desk all day, their station playing, but in reality, to play 5-6 hours a day, you got to be in really good shape. you can't just sit around. You got to be in good shape to be able to focus like that and be able to handle being there all that period of time. Of course, Call of Duty, which is one of the most popular games I mentioned to you already, has their own league, and of course, Twitch has their broadcast network, which is literally by the way, it's interesting, Kevin, and you probably, as I said, know more than me about this, but whatever the most popular players are playing at that moment in time becomes the number one game at that moment in time. There's only 2 or 3 players that need to be playing for that to become the number one trending game, because they have such a huge audience. It's amazing. I mean, you're talking about some of these people, Kevin, have tens of millions of followers. And I want to mention one thing for those parents that might be out there thinking this is not something I'm gonna get my kids into. The most recent Fortnite championship tournament was won by a 15 or 16-year-old who won $3.1 million. So I'm pretty sure that his parents, after that tournament, said, get in the basement and play your video games. So I want to come back to you, Kevin. There's a lot of money in this that's sort of bubbling up. And you've already mentioned different ways for us to get into the market. You can go back to 3UP.
So his name is Booga, and he won the Fortnite World Cup $3 million a few years ago. And the most recent one in Fort Worth a couple of weekends ago, Peterbot and Pollo won the duos. They won, a few $100,000. But Peterbot and Booga have now paired up. It's just interesting to see this whole dynamic and what's playing out here. But yeah, absolutely, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for these students to make money. I keep calling them students, but a lot of these students have already graduated. But there's a lot of opportunity to make money professionally at esports.
Yeah, and as I said, this is an emerging market, but yet it is all about AV. I mean, this is an emerging market, but yet it is filled with AV technology, and we have to be proactive in the way that we approach this market. I think the message I've gotten out of this is Extron wants to partner with you and help you build systems, but also help you, even before that, form the relationships with the right people. And that includes both your team, Kevin, and your team, Andrew. How do I engage with you? Do I just email you, or what do I do? I know you have this design guide. We've linked the design guide. Should we start with the design guide and then go from there? What's the best way to get engaged, Andrew?
Sure. So I think probably one of the easiest ways to catch up with us is to go to extron.com/esports. And from there, you can reach out to the team that supports esports. You can send them an email. You can download the design guide. There's even a fair bit of information on that landing page itself. And so that's probably the number one place to go to get your feet wet on esports.
Perfect. All right, good. So extron.com/esports. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now, and we'll take you straight to that if you're interested and want to sign up right now. Or you can start with that design guide below. Kevin, do you have anything else to say? You good? Would I miss anything, or did I leave anything out?
Oh, this was great. We really appreciate the opportunity to just share some things what we're doing here. It's really an awesome market, something very, very unique and different, and it's a new opportunity for a lot of integrators to connect with schools they're already working with, and some new that they haven't been connected with previously.
Excellent. And Andrew, anything? Did I leave anything out?
No, you did a great job hitting the different aspects of AV systems and how they play into esports. Certainly, it's a really fun area to play in, and to see what I think is probably also going to be some of the future AV people are going to come out of these esports experiences, because they're going to be exposed to not just the games, but the infrastructure that supports them. And I think we'll see our industry really just grow, not just revenue from product sales, but also some of that human capital expand over the years as a result, which is pretty exciting.
I agree. And I would challenge all of you to go to a tournament. If there's a tournament locally, you should go to it and just check it out. It's going to get you totally excited. It's going to get you interested in this segment of the market and help. And you're going to be doing a great thing for the high schools and the colleges by bringing it to them, because as Kevin said, this esports has really provided a group of students with something that they didn't have before. Instead of going home and playing by themselves, they're playing as a group. They're learning collaboration. They're staying in school longer. They're more engaged, and there's a revenue opportunity in the future for this. Obviously, as you see it with the NCAA, the International Olympic Committee, and with the gaming companies themselves funding a lot of these tournaments. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Both these sessions will be wrapped up and put on our website at launch.com. Anytime you can go back and see them if you've already registered for this. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, you can just go to launch.com, make an account, and you can get access to this. And of course, I want you to click on the links below, spread the word, get the information out there, and let us know what we left out. If you know something else about esports and you want to participate in the next esports event that we hold, reach out to me directly, Gary@therAVEagency.com. I want to thank our producer, Emily, for making this happen and making everything look so good. I want to thank Kevin. And by the way, Kevin just came off vacation, so he got dumped right into this. I want to thank Kevin and Andrew for taking the time to do this. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Thanks for your support and for your commitment to rAVe. And we'll send you your CTS certificates in about 10 days. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.